Finding the lost tomb of Cleopatra, the legendary queen of ancient Egypt, is a kind of holy grail for archaeologists. Experts have said that such a discovery could rewrite history and be a once-in-a-century event. Although the list of places where the tomb can be located is not so long, archaeologists have still not pinpointed its exact location. Join us today as we look at the recent discovery that may finally lead archaeologists to the lost tomb of Queen Cleopatra and how the archaeologists stumbled upon it during their excavations. Who was Queen Cleopatra? For nearly 30 years, Cleopatra shared Egypt's throne as co-regent, first with her father, then with her two younger brothers, and finally with her son. She belonged to the dynasty of Macedonian rulers established by Ptolemy, who had been a general under Alexander the Great during the conquest of Egypt in 332 BC. Cleopatra was a well-educated and shrewd leader who was the most powerful figure in all three of her co-regencies. She is remembered for her exotic beauty and seductive abilities, as well as her sexual liaisons and military alliances with Roman commanders Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Antony and Cleopatra are arguably the most famous lovers in history. Marcus Antonius of Rome stood at the pinnacle of power, fighting to be the most powerful man in the known world, and Cleopatra was the queen of one ancient civilization, Egypt, and heir to the unmatched cultural achievements of another, Greece. Their love affair, war together, defeat, and suicides have been told and retold for centuries. It has been said that Octavian defeated the forces of Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in Alexandria on August 1st, 30 BC. The lovers made a desperate escape to Egypt. As Octavian's forces invaded Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra both decided to kill themselves. Antony stabbed himself with a sword after receiving false word that his lover was dead. Upon discovering Cleopatra was still alive, Antony asked to be brought to her to die in her arms. Once he died, Cleopatra managed to commit suicide through poison, allegedly through the forced bite of a poisonous snake called an asp. According to Roman historians Suetonius and Plutarch, the victorious Octavian allowed Antony and Cleopatra to be buried inside the tomb they had already begun, but that tomb was never discovered until recently. Lost Tomb of Queen Cleopatra. Underneath a temple in the ancient ruined city of Taposiris Magna on the Egyptian coast, archaeologists have uncovered a vast, spectacular tunnel that experts are referring to as a geometric miracle. Kathleen Martinez, an archaeologist at the University of Santo Domingo, has been searching for the lost tomb of Cleopatra for nearly 20 years. Now she believes she's made a pivotal breakthrough. During ongoing excavations and explorations of the temple, Kathleen Martinez and her colleagues uncovered the structure 13 meters 43 feet below the ground. The 2-meter-tall tunnel had been hewn through an incredible 1,305 meters of sandstone and is the result of nearly 2 decades of searching. According to the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, its design is remarkably similar to the 1,036-meter tunnel of Eupalinos, a 6th century BC aqueduct on the Greek island of Samos. Often referred to as a marvel of engineering, the conduit was unprecedented in design and construction in its day. While the Taposiris Magna tunnel isn't without equal, its engineering is nonetheless just as impressive. Parts of the Taposiris Magna tunnel are submerged in water, though putting aside its resemblance to the Eupalinos tunnel, its purpose is currently unknown. Martinez, who has been working in Taposiris Magna since 2004 in search of the lost tomb of Cleopatra, believes that the tunnel could be a promising lead. Previously, the excavations have yielded clues that seem to point to the famous queen and the last of the Ptolemies. Taposiris Magna was founded around 280 BCE by Ptolemy II, the son of Alexander the Great's renowned general and one of Cleopatra's forebearers. She herself ruled from 51 BCE until her death by suicide in 30 BCE. The temple, the team believes, was dedicated to the god Osiris and his queen, the goddess Isis, the deity with whom Cleopatra courted a strong association. Coins bearing the names and likeness of Cleopatra and Alexander the Great, as well as figurines of Isis, have been found there. The excavation revealed a huge religious center with 3 sanctuaries, a sacred lake, more than 1,500 objects, busts, statues, golden pieces, and a huge collection of coins portraying Alexander the Great, Queen Cleopatra, and the Ptolemies. Burial shafts containing Greco-Roman burials have also been found in the temple. It's possible that, if they're to be found there at all, Cleopatra and her husband Mark Antony may have been interred in similar tombs. It's too early to tell if the new tunnel could lead to these long-lost tombs, but future work could yield more information. The most interesting discovery is the complex of tunnels leading to the Mediterranean Sea and sunken structures. So exploring these underwater structures will be the next stage of the search, the Egyptian Queen's Lost Tomb, a journey that began back in 2005. If the mausoleum of Cleopatra has not already vanished beneath the waves of the Mediterranean, along with most of the Hellenistic city of Alexandria, it is one day found, it would be an almost unprecedented archaeological discovery and would enable a wealth of scientific research. Whether or not the tombs are found, a thorough excavation of these ruins could tell us more about the mysterious ancient city. The tunnel has already yielded some treasures, pieces of pottery, and a rectangular block of limestone. As the then Minister for Antiquities Zahi Hawass said 13 years ago, if we discover the tomb of Cleopatra Mark Antony, it will be the most important discovery of the 21st century. If we did not discover the tomb of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, we made major discoveries here, inside the temple and outside the temple. Roman propaganda painted Cleopatra as a debauched temptress, but she may have been more renowned for her intellect than her appearance. She spoke as many as a dozen languages and was educated in mathematics, philosophy, oratory, and astronomy, and Egyptian sources later described her as a ruler who elevated the ranks of scholars and enjoyed their company. There's also evidence that Cleopatra wasn't as physically striking as once believed. Coins with her portrait show her with manly features and a large hooked nose, though some historians contend that she intentionally portrayed herself as masculine as a display of strength. For his part, the ancient writer Plutarch claimed that Cleopatra's beauty was not altogether incomparable, and that it was instead her mellifluous speaking voice and irresistible charm that made her so desirable. Martinez, who has been working on discovering the Queen's Lost Tomb, admires Cleopatra as a historical character who was a victim of propaganda by the Romans, aiming to distort her image. Martinez admires Cleopatra as a student, a linguist, a mother, and a philosopher, primarily because she was an educated woman, probably the first one who studied formally at the museum in Alexandria, the center of culture in her time. One reason why researchers believe Cleopatra's tomb might be located in the Temple of Osiris in the ruined city of Taposiris Magna on Egypt's northern coast where the Nile River meets the Mediterranean is that Cleopatra was considered in her time to be the human incarnation of the god Isis, as Antony was considered to be that of the god Osiris, Isis's husband. It is believed that Cleopatra may have chosen to bury her husband in the temple to reflect this myth. Of all the 20 temples around Alexandria that have been studied, no place, structure, or temple combines so many conditions as the temple of Taposiris Magna. While many archaeologists are positive about finding the tomb of Cleopatra in the ruined city of Taposiris Magna, nearly a dozen scholars with expertise in Cleopatra believe that it's unlikely that Cleopatra was buried at Taposiris Magna, and the chances of finding her tomb are slim. Many scholars believe that Cleopatra would have been buried within Alexandria, possibly in an area that is now underwater. Cleopatra's palace and other buildings and monuments are said to be strewn on the seabed in the harbor of Alexandria, the second largest city of Egypt. Since 1994, archaeologists have been exploring the ruins, one of the richest underwater excavations in the Mediterranean, with some 6,000 artifacts. In recent years, excavators have discovered dozens of sphinxes in the harbor, along with pieces of what is believed to be the Alexandria Lighthouse or Pharos, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Along with it, a number of impressive structures like the temple dedicated to Caesar, an unfinished palace for Mark Antony, a temple dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Isis, columned avenues, monuments, a port, and a royal residence of the Egyptian pharaoh of Macedonian descent, Cleopatra, have been discovered. The small island of Antirodos off the coast of Alexandria, where all of these things were discovered, existed until the year 365, when a massive earthquake, believed to have been the biggest in the ancient Mediterranean, sent off a wave of destruction that reached as far as the shores of Spain. The earthquake's epicenter was off the island of Crete. Nearby Alexandria could not have been spared by the gargantuan tsunami that leveled this important city's neighborhoods, temples, and harbors. Cleopatra's palaces lie submerged 5 meters or 16 feet underwater, but it is almost ironic that Cleopatra's final resting place is waiting to be discovered. And even if the tomb is not underwater, there is a good chance that it was destroyed at some point in antiquity or that it's buried beneath modern-day development in Alexandria. According to some scholars, there is also a good chance that it was robbed in ancient times. At present, no projects are searching for Cleopatra's tomb underwater, although past projects have looked at Cleopatra's palace. Now the main focus of the researchers is to look into the tunnels because they might hold the key to the final resting place of the fabled Queen of Egypt. If her tomb is discovered, the architecture and material contents of the tomb alone would keep historians busy for decades and provide unprecedented amounts of information about the Ptolemaic royal cult and the fusion of Macedonian and Egyptian culture. But if Cleopatra's remains were there too, they could tell us a great deal more, including the cause of her death, her physical appearance, and even answer the thorny question of her race. Today, the final resting place of Cleopatra remains hidden, but maybe in the future, archaeologists will be able to find it and it will open a whole new chapter in the book of historical archives.